evening, everyone. I'm Paula Devine, and I'm Vice Chair of the Glendale Commission on the Status of Women. I would like to welcome all of you to our first annual Women at the Table. It's a collaborative event by the Commission on the Status of Women with participation from our Glendale City Clerk, Artie Kasakian, and of course our esteemed League of Women Voters, Glendale Burbank Chapter. I would like to take a moment to thank and congratulate each of you who are here tonight. I say congratulate because of the community leaders that, like all of you, to give up your night and your day, part of your day, to be here at such a special event. I would also like to take a minute to recognize just a few of our elected officials who are here tonight with us. In particular, our council members, Mayor Pro Tem Frank Quintero, Councilman Bob Yusafian, and our Glendale Unified School Board member, Nairi Nahabidian. And I may proudly say that she served as a member of our commission in the beginning. So welcome all of you. I would like to extend an invitation to the council members. Mayor Pro Tem Quintero, if you would please come up and say a few words this evening.
Let me start by saying, and I don't mean this to, as they say, pander, but the Commission on the Status of Women the last few years is off the charts in terms of how effective it's become, the kind of programs that they're running. So not only the staff person, but the actual members are just doing a tremendous, tremendous job. They just come up with ideas that I think are great. And in terms of this particular subject, I think later on, I suppose, we're going to talk about how it works and so forth. But just overall, let me say that more women need to apply. It's just plain and simple. You need to talk to your friends, to your relatives. You need to talk to other people who are residents of Glendale and get them interested in serving on these different boards and commissions. There's nothing mysterious about it. There's nothing difficult about it. It's just basically looking at the list of what's available and kind of deciding. I would suggest more than one or two commission, but deciding one or two commissions or boards that you think you might be interested in. Either you have the expertise, you've been trained in it, or you have an interest. Because for myself, when I look at applicants, I am more interested in what that person is going to bring to that commission. They don't have to be a registered engineer or an architect to serve on the design review board, or they don't have to be an expert on land use to serve on the planning commission. They have to express an interest in it, and they have to have some general knowledge. And I think you're going to find it something that you'll enjoy, and quite often there's a lot of pressure involved, and so I think you're going to find that interesting. Say, hey, wait a minute, I just signed up for, I'm a volunteer here, but sometimes these are matters that affect people's lives, whether it's their homes or their business or various programs. And so anyway, I think you'll find it very stimulating. But like I say, I'm here to learn and listen to the commission members. And I'm very happy to be here among so many friends, and hopefully some of the people that I haven't met yet, we can get together and talk a little bit after the event. Thank you very much.
First of all, I want to thank the Commission on Status of Women for inviting me down here. They always do a great job. Everything that Frank says, ditto. The organization has done tremendously in the past few years. I would say it's one of the most active commissions that we've had. We had a little bit of a hiccup in the beginning, but then again, you always have a little bit of a hiccup in the beginning because people still don't know where it is when you're just creating a new commission. Nevertheless, the commission is growing, and I think this type of an event is extremely important. Part of the reason is that people need to apply. I cannot put people on commission if they have not applied. So that's the phase one, fill an application. Phase two, fill an application on something you know something about or you would like to learn something about and enjoy. The last thing you want to do is become a commissioner on a committee that you hate. Because truly, there is no so-called status involved with commissioner, and I will tell you, as a past commissioner, and several of them are in here, it's a lot of work. But you need to do it because you enjoy it. And in the process, you learn a lot. Commissions, in many cases, are used in many cities to introduce average, ordinary citizens to the way the city bureaucracies work. Because from the outside, you have a different vision of how bureaucracy works. And you go, well, how come they can't do this? And I want them to do that. And this doesn't work. And why isn't it this way? And why isn't that way? Well, you become a member, and then within the first 6 months, you realize why things are going the way they're going. There's explanations, there are reasons, sometimes not good ones, but nevertheless they are. So I would strongly recommend fill an application. As Frank said, if you have several different things you want to apply for, fill one application and you could put down, I want to be design review, planning commission, arts and culture, women's commission. And every time those openings are available, we get a copy of that. We look at your resume, we read about why you want to do it, what's the reason, and then after we go through the resume, we will call you, we'll sit down, we will talk to you, ask you questions. And the one thing to me, and I'm not speaking for the rest of my colleagues, is my first question is going to be, do you have the time? That is the most important, because I have appointed commissioners to commissions, and they've showed to the first meeting, and they've been absent for the 5, 6 other meetings. That's not what I'm trying to get. We need to get people to participate, because that vote is going to be extremely important. If it's not there, somebody's project is probably going to get approved that shouldn't be approved, or gets denied that shouldn't have been denied if that particular vote was there. So it's extremely important. If you're going to do this, make sure you have the time. Make sure you have the time to read the material. Make sure you have the time to go to the places and check them out if you're going to do any land entitlement type of a thing. And you're going to have to do more than just what you do that day when you go there. There's always homework involved. We do a lot more before 6 o'clock on Tuesdays. We read a lot of the stuff, we get prepared, go to places, we answer the phone calls, and so on and so forth. We just don't walk over there and say aye, nay, and go home. It doesn't work that way. But you need to go there, because I started as a commissioner, did 5 years in BZA, and then said, you know what, I'd like to go for council. And you see a lot of people who do the same thing. They start as a commissioner, they get some exposure out there. If they have the gumption to go for more punishment, then they re-up for city council and try to put themselves through that race. And if they get elected, then they do twice as much work when they did when they were running for election. But that's how this country's government works. It depends and relies on just the people, ordinary citizens. Nothing magical, don't need to have degrees, with the exception of one council member who looks very favorably on a USC engineering degree. The rest of us have no problem with UCLA, right? Or anything else, as a matter of fact. So please come forward, apply, give us the opportunity to ask you a question, and also give you the chance to add to this community, because every single person counts. Thank you very much.
I would also like to thank the current board and commission members that are here tonight and the staff supporting this event. It's really important to us that you are here, and all of you that are present, you are free to talk to all the commissioners and board members that are here and ask any kind of questions that you have for them. I hope you're enjoying the delicious food that's been provided by Damon's Steakhouse. We thank Patrick. He's very generous and supportive of the Women's Commission every time we ask. Last but certainly not least, we would like to thank the Alex Theater, and in particular, Alyssa Glickman, for supporting this event. Now, let's get on with our program. Since 1920, and the women's suffrage movement, the League of Women Voters has been a force to be reckoned with on the national and the local levels. We are fortunate in our community to have an extraordinary chapter, and the Commission on the Status of Women has partnered with them and they have supported us from the beginning. In 2004, our very first commission event was in partnership with the League of Women Voters, and we are very grateful for their support. I would like to introduce Monica Marquez, and she is the chapter president for the local League of Women Voters Glendale Burbank chapter. Monica?
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for coming. I'm the president of the League of Women Voters Glendale Burbank, and we are extremely pleased to have been asked to be a part of tonight's presentation. The League of Women Voters, despite its name, is open to all citizens, men and women, of voting age. Associate membership is open to all others. We have a website,
Go ahead.
lwvglendaleburbank.org. Right now, I'd like to mention that I like to sew. How, you may ask, can that possibly be relevant to Glendale boards and commissions? If you bear with me a moment, I'll try to pull this all together. I do alterations and repairs for family and friends. While not of life-shattering moment, it's important because it has to be done. Clothes have to be repaired. But more important than that, sewing gives me a feeling of continuity. People, mostly women, have been sewn for thousands of years. For as long as there have been clothes, women have sewn them. And people, mostly women, will continue to sew after I'm gone. But while I'm doing it, I become part of a chain of people doing something that's necessary. Now, I look at public service in a similar way. Many people before me have done it, sometimes in awe-inspiring fashion, and many people will do it after me far more ably than I can. But for right now, it's important that I do it. Now is the time. Women have always served their communities, but women have not always had the right to vote or to sit on boards and commissions. That right was established in 1920 with the passage of the 19th Amendment. So what did women do before then? As I was preparing my remarks tonight, I mentioned this to my neighbor who needed some sewing, and who, in addition to being a very good neighbor, is a student of the women's suffrage movement. She offered me some books and some important thoughts. With no right to serve in public office and tremendous responsibilities at home, how did women serve their communities? The answer? They formed women's clubs. Women's clubs started roughly around the Civil War time. At first, they tended to be literary clubs where women would read and discuss books for self-improvement. But as the years passed, they looked around and saw that their communities were in dire need of improvement. These clubs evolved into practical problem-solving groups. Municipal housekeeping, it was called, an extension of the housekeeping women were responsible for in their homes outside to the greater community. One group in Philadelphia, for example, was concerned with the water quality. They studied the problem, traveled to research water filtration systems, and even retained an engineer. They presented their clean water program to the mayor. A bond issue was floated, and it passed. The year, 1893. They couldn't vote on it. They couldn't serve on it, but they succeeded. Now, I wouldn't be true to the League of Women Voters without a nod toward the women's suffrage movement. It took nearly a century of work for women to gain the right to vote, and by virtue of that, to hold public office. Women worked before us worked and sacrificed dearly to secure that right. And we hope we can depend on the women who come after us to maintain that right. But right now, in the time we are in, it is important to honor those who came before us by exercising our rights. It is important that we continue to do municipal housekeeping by serving on municipal boards and commissions to solve the problems we have right now with resources we uniquely bring to the table. We need to be part of the continuity of women in service to their communities. It can be as simple as sewing a hem or as complicated as holding the public trust, but now is our time. That's why I think that service on Glendale boards and commission is so important. It's a chance to serve Glendale and to help solve problems that we face as a community. It's a nod to those who came before us and will be an inspiration to those who come after us. It's our time. Thank you.
Now at this time I'd like to bring up one of the driving forces behind this event, the chair of the Glendale Commission on the Status of Women, Carla Curlin. Carla.
Okay, I'm going to tell you about how I came to be on the commission, but this is just one way. So this is my story, but there are many different paths to take to get here. It probably began some decades ago when I was born to feminist parents, but I'll jump ahead a few decades and spare you the early traumas. But in the early 90s, a friend of a friend called to ask if I would be interested in serving on a nonprofit board of directors. And I didn't really know what it was, and I thought it sounded impressive, so I said yes. What I didn't know was that that nonprofit was not yet incorporated. So that was my initial foray into the community and volunteer service, where I learned how to draft articles of incorporation, how to make the bylaws for an organization, how to write personnel policies, job descriptions, hire staff, and implement policy for an agency. This particular nonprofit provided service-enriched and affordable housing to low-income women who had children. The typical client was someone emancipating from foster care who now had her own baby and was on the verge of becoming homeless. So through this service, I gained knowledge on issues such as child care, job training, financial literacy for women, and violence against women. Professionally, I happen to be an attorney. I joined the Women Lawyers Association of Los Angeles as a law student and continued to be a member for many years. At one point, I decided to chair one of their committees, and when they see that you're good at that and they follow through, they sort of recruit you for the leadership track. And that leadership track led me to one day be the president of this 800-plus member organization of women lawyers and judges. But it began where first you were the secretary, and then you were the treasurer, and each year you rose up for 6 years or 7 until you had gained a really good understanding of how that organization functioned at every level and in every way. Women lawyers worked on issues of women in the legal profession, but in a broader sense, it worked on issues important to women in the community, such as the status of women, and issues such as reproductive rights and freedom of choice. I devoted my service to a project on mentoring middle school girls. Well, once you're on a nonprofit board and people see that you follow through and you do the tasks that are assigned, you start getting recruited to be on all kinds of nonprofit boards. I think on once I was serving on 4 or 5. I joined Peace Over Violence, which was formerly known as the Los Angeles Commission on Assaults Against Women, as well as the foundation at my daughter's elementary school, because I thought it was really important to be involved there as well. Through each of these commitments, I broadened my experience level and exposure to different issues that impact women. Some years ago, I attended a program much like this, sponsored by the Los Angeles Women's Appointment Collaboration. And it was the how-to of how to get on a board or commission. And at that time, I lived in the city of Los Angeles. I didn't apply, but I took my packet home with me and I sort of sat on it, and I knew now the process was no longer a mystery, what it sort of entailed, how it worked, and how you get those appointments, because I had no understanding of it before that, but it was something that sort of seemed interesting to me. In 2003, I saw that the city of Glendale was accepting applications for the Commission on the Status of Women. I made a quick decision to apply because the deadline was fast approaching. I filled out the application, and I realized as I did that through my life's journey, without even realizing it, I had gained all these different experiences that I could bring to the table. I applied, and I was appointed to the founding commission. Since then, I have become the chair, and I will term out in 2009, which will leave an opening. I should tell you, when I applied, I didn't really know all that was entailed. We were also a new commission, so we didn't yet have a mission statement, and we didn't yet have a strategic plan, and we didn't know what would be the issues we would work on and where we would go. We didn't have a budget per se. We had a budget for our staff person, Lana Haddad, and we had a staff for the office supplies and things like that, but not to produce our programs. So we had to learn how to fundraise and make the money for all of the programs that we wanted to do. I applied, and I didn't know that we had to be interviewed, and I didn't know, maybe I hadn't done all my research, so I'm going to share this wisdom with you. I didn't know it was going to be televised, and I didn't know that you had an opportunity to give a statement. I'd never been to the city council chambers before, so I popped open that door, and there were the men sitting there. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I walked down the aisle and I approached the podium, and they said, if you like, you can give an opening statement. This is where it helps to be an attorney, because you can kind of fly by the seat of your pants. So I just sort of launched in and said, here's why I think I'd be great. And I walked out and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea we were going to give an opening statement and be filmed. And then I hear that it was aired again subsequently, and I was mortified. So now you'll be well prepared to find out what your appointment process entails when you apply. So anyway, what I want to tell you about is a little bit about this experience for me. I work full-time. I have small children. I'm the mother of a 7-year-old and a 9-month-old baby. I currently sit on 2 nonprofit boards, 1 advisory board, and serve as the chair of the Commission on the Status of Women. Is it a lot? It is. I feel like I'm juggling, and sometimes I drop a ball, but I can always pick it back up and keep going. It's doable if you have the energy, if you have the enthusiasm, and if you're willing to devote the time that it takes. I would like to impart to each of you today that you have your own story, your own unique talent and experiences that you could bring to the table at one of these commissions and boards. And don't just consider the Commission on the Status of Women because you happen to be a woman. There are many other commissions, some of them are power commissions, that deal with really important subjects in our city. And be open-minded when looking at what those opportunities are. You don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to have any professional skills. We've had a teacher, a psychologist, an architect, a banker, an engineer, business consultants, a professor, and many others. Some are married, some have partners, some do not. Some are mothers, some are single, some work, some are retired. Each individual brings her unique perspective to the table, and that diversity of opinion is what we need to be representative of our community at large. Our goal here today is to give you an introduction to the process, to let you know what it entails, to give you those packets that you can take with you and either apply or sit on them and think about it for a while. My one caveat is this. Timing is everything, and if you truly are overextended, this might not be the time for you to apply. It's a really big commitment when you do it right, and you want to be sure it's the right time in your life, with your job, with the responsibilities that you have before you accept and take on this responsibility. Also, to that end, different commissions probably have different time commitments. So it's good to do research to see when do they meet, how often do they meet, is it during the day, would you be able to leave a job if you're working or not, do they meet at night, do you have obligations at night that would keep you from going to a meeting. I know for the Women's Commission, we want people to attend all of our meetings and to attend all of our functions, and then we have subcommittee meetings, some are ad hoc, some meet regularly, and you have to be willing to do that work. We also have to fundraise, as I mentioned, so there's a lot that is entailed. And there's nothing more frustrating to fellow commissioners to have some who work and some who do it for the perceived status. So please be sure that the timing is right and that your heart is really in it. We don't want to just see more women on commissions and appointed to commissions. We want to see qualified women who are ready, willing, able to serve, who have energy and enthusiasm to bring to the table. So in closing, I hope that you're inspired to learn more and get involved. I will be available to answer any questions you might have after the presentation, and I just want to thank you for coming out today.
Thank you, Carla. In addition to the League of Women Voters tonight, we are so pleased to be able to partner with our city clerk, Artie Kasakian, whose personal mission was to expand his office to do more voter awareness and outreach. And I have to tell you that since taking office, Mr. Kasakian has consistently looked for opportunities to collaborate with the Commission on the Status of Women in one event or another. I remember as clear as all of you sitting there, the first day that I went in to take my oath. And Artie said, you know, I'm really looking forward to working with the Commission on the Status of Women. And I said, oh, and I can't wait either, because we have to get women out there to vote and college students to vote. And so I'm so happy that here we are tonight doing what we set out to do. We are so pleased to put our collective and mutual passion on the topic of political participation to work for the benefit of our city, with a partner as dedicated at his work, his mission, and his message. May I present our city clerk, Artie Kisaki.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, and I have looked for opportunities to work with the Commission on the Status of Women because I truly believe in its mission, and I'm very happy to see a lot of friendly and familiar faces here in the audience today, including, sure, why not, our council members as well. I'm kidding, just teasing you guys. I can do that because I have to put up with them every Tuesday. The great Greek orator and general of the Peloponnesian War, Pericles, had a line in one of his speeches that I often like to quote when speaking to various groups about civic duty and responsibility. And he said that you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And I don't claim to know each of you very well, although we've worked together at various opportunities throughout my tenure as city clerk, but I will say that I know this about you, that if you weren't interested in your local government and the future of your city, you wouldn't be here this evening. And in turn, I want to let you know and assure you that your local government is also interested in you and in your abilities. And that is why we're here. That is why I'm here to answer your questions and to help you understand how this process works. My office is a steward of the boards and commissions. We are the ones who process applications and work with the council to ensure that we get the best candidates, the most qualified candidates for each board and commission. So I want to encourage you to apply. Please, we need you. And let me list, for those of you who picked up one of the folders that was prepared for this evening, inside it you will see a little booklet, not done very, extravagantly, very simple, provided from our office. We're going through some budget cuts right now. We're trying to save as much as we can, minimize our carbon footprint in the clerk's office, but in it you'll find brief descriptions of all the commissions. And for those, I understand this will probably be televised later on. I want to list what those commissions are. Arts and Culture Commission. By the way, most of these commissions, you can guess what their duties are or what they deal with by their names. Arts and Culture does not have to do with sewing. Necessarily, it could. But Arts and Culture Commission, Building and Fire Board of Appeals, the Civil Service Commission, which is a system upon which the hirings in City Hall are done by, Design Review, and we have two of these. We like it so much we decided to have two. Historic Preservation, Glendale Water and Power, Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. If that's not all-encompassing, I don't know what is. It just covers pretty much everything. Planning, Commission on the Status of Women, Transportation and Parking. I'm telling you, you guys can guess what all of this have to do with, except for planning. Planning kind of was nebulous, but there's folks here from the planning department who can answer that. In fact, they have huge boards set up to explain it. And finally, but not listed here, is the Community Development Block Grant Board, which distributes federal funds for various community projects, also known as the CDBG. Now, just a little bit of more information that will hopefully be helpful as you consider whether you want to serve or not. Between now and December of this year, there will be 11 vacancies on various commissions. Of these, 8 appointments of the 8 of the positions will be eligible for reappointment, but that does not necessarily mean that they will be reappointed. Okay, so some people are termed out, as we've heard, but others can be reappointed, but it all really depends on the timing, the situation. We've had people leave in midterm because they no longer qualify to be a commissioner, and the qualifications, basically, other than, and we'd always like to have people who have some experience or expertise in a pertinent field. Basically, the only qualification really is, other than one of the commissions requires that you be, have a background in architecture, is you have to be a registered citizen of the city of Glendale, and you have to, basically, to be a registered voter and citizen, you have to live within the city of Glendale and be registered to vote in Glendale. For specifics, I recommend that you contact my office. Telephone number is on the back of the booklet, but for those watching at home, it's 818-548-4000. That's 548-4000, area code 818. And you can ask to speak to Michael Dunn, who is my office staff person assigned to handling the commission's needs and applicants and helping them out in the process. And you can also visit our website at www.ci.glendale.ca glendale.us, or just Google the city of Glendale, California. That's my shameless plug for Google. I also would like to mention, and perhaps some of the council members can talk about this when you approach them, you can ask them more about this, that the council has moved towards more of a one-to-one nomination process, whereas before there was a nomination panel where 2 council members had to agree on a nominee. It is now for all the commissions, each council member gets to nominate a person themselves. Then that nomination is presented to the council, and their colleagues must approve that council person's nomination. Okay? This would, by the way, if I want to go into further detail, this would require a city attorney, and we probably have one here, although she doesn't want to speak on the topic, but to go into greater detail. If you watch Channel 6, you know what I'm talking about. It was a long process to get to that point, but this is what it is now. So be aware of that. It is with rotation as well. For council member, yes, it goes in alphabetical order and it rotates to council member. So if council member Quintero has already appointed someone, he then cannot nominate the next person for the next commission. Like I said, it would help to have an attorney explain all this. Call my office. We'll talk. So some of the things you must be aware of as a commissioner, you have to declare your economic interests. Okay, you have to fill out a form of economic interest. So that means that you have to declare what interests you have, financial or otherwise, financial basically vis-a-vis the city of Glendale, and if you feel that a decision that you will be making will somehow impact those interests, or that your interests may impact your decision-making process, you have to excuse yourself. So if it's voting on the construction of, say, Starbucks, and you have that large coffee plantation somewhere, you have to let the citizens of Glendale know. It is their right to know. You must be willing to actually attend the meetings. We heard that it's a commitment. Now, it was said that some commissions are really important. I like to think, like a mother to his children, that all the commissions are equally important. But some require more of a time commitment than others. Some meet more often than others. Civil service commissioners will tell you about the number of hearings that they have to attend, the length of some of those hearings. Design review board members will tell you about their meetings and how long they last, depending on the number of projects that are in the pipeline and how eagerly people who have applied for those applications are awaiting a decision one way or the other by these boards. So it is a time commitment. And some are less of a time commitment depending on the workload of that particular commission at that particular time. So decisions made by the city council are based on your deliberation. You are, in essence, mini councils. That is what you are. You vote, you come to decisions, that those recommendations are presented to the departments or the councils. I recommend that you get to know your council members very well. It always helps in this process. We do not do for all the commissions a televised interview, although I've been a long-time advocate of that process. I kind of like the C-SPAN style, get to know everyone, put them in front of the lights and question them. But that is not currently, and I have no authority to change that process, although it is a recommendation that I've made that, we have those interviews. But basically, you will turn in your application, you will request the application from us. You can download it from our website, fill it out, return it. You wait for, we then process it by sending copies of it to the council member who's responsible for that appointment. We do it on a regular basis, so once you turn in an application, it's there and it's good for a long time. As long as we'll periodically call in and check in with you and make sure that you're still interested in having your application stay in the pipeline. You have to wait until you're called by a council member. So get to know them. Come every Tuesday night. That's the best way to get hold of them. I have no shame. I know there 2 of them are here, and I'll tell you, get them as they were trying to walk out and go home. Sit in the audience or the peanut gallery, as I like to call it, depending on how the meeting is going that evening. And then afterwards, pull them aside, introduce yourself. To paraphrase something, I guess Barry Goldwater once said that timidness in the pursuit of a commission appointment is no virtue. Okay, and I guess tenacity is no vice. Is that a good way of putting it? So be tenacious, be diligent, show up, talk to them. I want to express my personal thoughts on civic duty at this point and involvement. by saying we need you. We really do need you. And we watch the news, we hear about all these problems regarding water conservation, recycling, the environment, congestion, blight, crime, whatever it may be. And these are all problems that are very real. We are a growing city, the third largest in Los Angeles County, and these problems are at our doorstep, knocking on our door. If you have any expertise in any of these areas, if you have an idea that you would like to share, now is your time to step up and really participate in the civic process. We need your help. On my desk, I have a small plaque that was given to me by the principal of Clark Magnet High School, upon which there's an inscription, a very simple one, by Mahatma Gandhi. It says, "Be that change in the world that you wish to see." Be that change in the world that you wish to see. Friends, it's not enough to sit around and wax poetic about how wonderful it would be to have the first African American in the White House, or the first woman in the White House, or to have the first Vietnam POW in the White House, or whatever it may be. Or to talk about how we'd live in a better society if there was no domestic violence, abuse against women, a cleaner air and cleaner water to drink, to breathe. We have to take action. And that action starts with you. It starts with you coming to City Hall, getting the application, asking the questions that you need to know to become a commissioner, and then stepping up to the challenge and filling that role and becoming a leader in your community. So I want to thank you for your interest. I want to wish you good luck, and you have the support of my office fully in whatever you need to know to realize your goals and your dreams. Thank you.
Thank you, Artie. The nuts and bolts of the appointment process and a little philosophy thrown in on the side. Very good, thanks. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge some of my fellow commissioners that are here tonight. If you'll just stand up, please, for me. Of course, you've met Carla Curlin. Marie Lamel came in. Elizabeth Manasarian is here. Ruth Sobey, and myself. I would also, for the benefit of everyone that's here that is interested in a commission or in talking to a commissioner or a board member, with those of you that are on commissions or boards, please stand up or wave so that everyone knows who you are and they can go to you and ask you what board or commission you're on and find out more information. I hope that we have inspired some of you tonight to apply, to come to the city, to become involved in the city government. It's hard work, it's time-consuming, but it's fun and it's interesting, and it keeps you off the streets. It's great. I'm the retired one. I'm the retired one they were talking about. So I know what she's speaking of. Please, if you would, don't forget to fill out the the evaluation sheets. Thank you. I always forget at least one word. And thank you all for coming, and I hope to see some of you on boards and commissions next year. And if not, please come back and see us for our second annual Women at the Table. Thank you.